Well, I did a video on Alzheimer's. Just about every disease, well, every disease can be curable. Every illness, every disease is nothing more than the result of a behavior. And every behavior is caused by a belief. So you can prevent every illness by noticing what the causes are. What are the behaviors that cause that to happen? And lots of our illnesses are global. They're behaviors of the community. Like you can put a lot of toxins in your community and you can get a cluster of people getting cancer. There's always going to be a few that don't get cancer. That's something you'd want to kind of look at. Kind of also look at why the heart doesn't get cancer if you can understand illnesses. But anyways, with autism is one that I wanted to talk about. Kind of some reason I've really understood this illness, and for me personally, after I kind of seen what the causes are, I can kind of see that maybe my son might be having a child that might be autistic. And you can learn about life from your past and preventing it. So it's a matter of, will my son be open enough to receive some information that prevents it? Or he can learn more about life by having his own kids. And I personally, I mean, even though my kids don't listen to me, I have learned just about everything I know through my kids. I kind of, when I was born, I knew what love was. I knew what happiness was. And then as soon as my parents started beating me and saying they love me, it's like, that ain't love. you know. And I was true to myself and stayed on that path that listened to my own voice and what's right and wrong. And my parents were never happy people, and yet they were trying to tell me how to be happy. Kind of didn't make any sense. So I thought, well, if when I was born I knew so much more than my parents did, then I bet you any money when I have kids, my kids are going to know more than me. So I intentionally had 4 kids, which magically there were 2 boys and 2 girls, so I had the perspective, more than one perspective of the male, more than one perspective of the female. And I ended up learning more about life through my kids. So any information I have is actually come from my kids. So if they ever want to listen to me, it's like listening to yourself, because that's where most of it came from. For me, I just did the research and lived the experiences of what they taught me. It's like they sort of were teaching me what the game is, and I played it out and had the drama and kind of figured it out. Now, autism, if you can see how to prevent it, it's notice what are the behaviors that actually tend to cause it. And one of them is obsessive compulsive disorders. And my son married a girl that has obsessive compulsive behaviors. And where that came from is she's told me stories that nothing she ever did was good enough. Her parents would always be critical. Nothing was ever good enough. No matter what she did, was never good enough. And she was always a high achiever. Excellent in sports, excellent in school, great at her job, a high achiever. Most obsessive compulsive people will make a lot of money. They're very, very good at what they do, and they're very highly focused, and they'll do it until it's perfect. Part of this problem is they can never see perfection in something that's not perfect, and it's like the whole universe is perfect. So how is it you can't see what's perfect about everything? But obsessive compulsive people can't see perfection anywhere. That's the drive. It's constantly, I got to try and be perfect all the time. And then when you have a child, then you have an even more intense reflection of that behavior. And now it's starting to come out as autism, who you can see they're obsessive compulsive. They can spin a plate over and over and over again and find that amazing. They're also highly intelligent, highly one-focused. They can be savants. They can pick a date anywhere in history and know exactly what the weather was like, or they can be really good at programming because they can see patterns. they will be focused, highly focused within the information field, and be able to receive information that has everything to do with that specific area of study. Um, and my son, who I had tested when he was a kid, he processes information really, really fast, faster than normal. But he can't receive any information. We had to treat him like he was deaf. He's not deaf, but he just couldn't receive any information. And basically, it's sort of a male trait that they hear what they want to hear and they block out everything they don't want to hear. And it's kind of intensified um, with him. And like he doesn't want to do any conflict. So basically, he doesn't want to hear any information that might disagree with him. And autism is definitely a communication problem. You cannot communicate with these people. So if he has a child and his partner is obsessive compulsive, those are two of the very biggest causes of autism. Not to mention vaccines. I mean, if you're going to see that, everything's wonderful, and you're not going to recognize that there are a few people on the planet that are making a few mistakes. And some of those mistakes could be made when they're making these vaccines. And if you don't want to receive some information that says, hey, maybe this isn't a good thing, then you're going to give your kid a vaccine just because you're not open and aware to receive information of things you should have been aware of. I was very aware of what my kids were getting. One daughter in particular could not take any vaccines. I mean, I tried to get her, it was like 2 hours, but she was deadly, totally against the needle. And eventually, I eventually learned to pay attention to my kids. And there's probably a good chance that she probably would have gotten autism just because of the age she was at, and the vaccines that were being developed at that time more than likely would have caused an illness. So it's like intuitively she knew it was a bad thing for her to get, and so she's never gotten it. So how you would cure autism is you have to understand it's a reflection of yourself. And to cure it is change your behaviors. And you could do it before you have kids, but if you're going to do it after you have kids, then you're going to have to understand you got to get into their world. If they're obsessive compulsive, then be obsessive compulsive with them. Let them know that you are on the same page with them. Mirror every single thing that they do, and then introduce something different. Something really small, but just start communicating. But you have to change your obsessive compulsive behaviors so they start learning how to change their obsessive compulsive behaviors. You got to jump out of your thing so that they can learn by your example how to jump out of their thing. You have to communicate with them, find out what they're comfortable with. They're going to be highly sensitive people. So it's like a baby crying when it wants food. A child that has autism will know right from wrong. It will know this isn't comfortable. This is something negative. And he'll let you know. He'll cry, scream, So you should use that as, okay, he doesn't like that. And try not to do it. It's not a matter of keep pushing things they don't like until they start liking it. That is the absolute wrong thing to do. It's paying attention to what they're sensitive to, and then make sure they're never around that. And find things that they do like. Constantly try and introduce new things to them and see if it brings them pleasure. And then when it brings them pleasure, introduce new beliefs inside them. You have to communicate on their level, but once you get them communicating with you, that's when you can maybe introduce new ideas. But again, you have to change your behaviors. You have to start receiving information if you want them to receive information. They will mirror you. They are a perfect reflection of you. And whatever example you want them to learn, you have to show it. Day in and day out, you have to change every aspect of how you live your life, what you believe in, and then they will start reflecting it. They're basically another generation that's trying to get you to jump out of these sort of negative behaviors that, you know, won't get you anywhere. It's like you got to find the perfection in the imperfection, and that'll lead towards a cure. It is a process. Hope that helps. Peace out.